Picture a small village, not far from the bustling Indian city of Agra. It's here that a story began that would seriously challenge everything we think we know about life and death and memory. And it all starts not with some grand mystery, but with the very first words of a child. Words that, it turns out, didn't belong to him at all. This is the incredible story of the boy who lived twice.
So just imagine for a second hearing that from your 2.5-year-old son. I mean, what would you even do? Well, that was the reality for the family of a little boy named Titu Singh, who everyone called Titu. For most parents, a child's first words are, a moment of pure joy. But for Titu's parents, it was the start of a puzzle that was as profound as it was deeply, deeply unsettling.
See, as soon as Titu could talk, he wasn't really talking about his own life. He was talking about a completely different one. He insisted he had another name, a different family, and a home that was miles away from the humble village where he was born.
And what's just wild are the specifics of his claims. I mean, this wasn't your typical childhood make-believe. He'd complain, saying things like, "This house is dirty. I had a big bungalow." He'd throw a fit about riding the bus, insisting he was used to a car. He even scolded his own mother for her clothes, saying, "My wife's Saudis cost thousands. You are poor. I don't like it." He claimed his real name was Suresh Verma, that he owned a radio shop in Agra, and that he just desperately missed his wife, Uma, and their 2 kids.
You can just imagine the confusion and fear this was causing his family. His behavior got more and more aggressive. He would cry, he'd scream, demanding to be taken to his real home. At one point, he even started calling his own parents Gulu's mom and dad, using his older brother's name. The emotional toll on everyone must have been immense.
Well, something had to give. The breaking point finally came in April of 1987. After a really intense crying spell from Titu, his older brother Gulu just made a decision. He decided he was going to take Titu to Agra and find out once and for all if there was any truth to these completely impossible stories. And what they would find? Well, it wouldn't just validate Titu's memories, it would uncover a story of love, loss, and murder.
So, with nothing more than a 4-year-old's memories to guide them, Galu and a friend started searching the huge Sadar Bazaar market in Agra. For hours, they found absolutely nothing. They were getting exhausted, they were ready to pack it in and go home, probably convinced it was all just a kid's fantasy. And then, they saw it, a small shop with a sign that read, Suresh Radios.
But finding the shop, that wasn't the end of the mystery. Not even close. It was actually the beginning of a much darker one. Because when they went inside that shop, they learned that a man named Suresh Verma had in fact owned it, and that he had been murdered just a few years earlier, in August of 1983.
Later, when Suresh's widow Uma and her family traveled to Titu's village, the confirmations were just staggering. Titu ran right up to them, identifying every single family member by their name and their relationship to him. He pointed to a photo of Suresh and said it was him. He asked Uma about their 2 sons by name, and then he told them exactly how Suresh Verma died, stopped outside his house late at night, and shot in the head by one of 3 men.
The impact this had on Uma Verma and her family was just profound. The details Titu knew were so intimate, so specific, that they were left with one single, chilling conclusion. Somehow, this little boy was holding the memories of her dead husband.
Okay, but memories, no matter how specific they are still intangible, right? The investigators and researchers who got interested in this case, like Dr. Antonia Mills, they needed something more. They needed physical proof.
And this, right here, is where the story takes its most incredible turn. Could there possibly be a physical link between Titu Singh's small body and the fatal wounds that ended Suresh Verma's life?
This slide pretty much illustrates the absolute crux of this entire case. Suresh Verma's autopsy report stated that the bullet entered his right temple and exited from behind his right ear. So when doctors examined Titu, they found a distinct, scar-like birthmark in the exact same spot on his right temple. And behind his right ear, precisely where the bullet would have exited, there was a slight raised bulge in the skin. The correlation was, well, it was perfect.
So, what do you make of all this? You've got these detailed memories, emotional recognitions, and a 1 in a million physical correspondence. This is where the story really splits, moving from this straightforward, bizarre narrative to a really complex puzzle with a lot of competing explanations. One of the most crucial points here is the timeline.
There was a bit of a discrepancy in Titu's birth records. See, Suresh Varma was murdered in August 1983. Now, if Titu was born in December 1982, like one record suggested, that means he was alive when Suresh died. And that points to one kind of spiritual concept. But if he was born in December 1983, it aligns more with a standard theory of reincarnation.
So, that earlier birth date, 1982, supports this fascinating concept in Hindu belief called prakamya pravesh. The easiest way to think about it is like a soul being able to move into a new house before the old one is completely empty. That's the idea. The later date, 1983, supports the more common idea of reincarnation, where a soul simply transfers after death. The fact that his birthday was uncertain meant that both possibilities were kind of on the table.
Of course, there are other explanations. Researchers propose several, let's say, more secular possibilities. Could this have been an extreme case of dissociative identity disorder, where Titu developed this whole Suresh persona based on information he might have overheard somewhere? Or was the story just a product of a culture where reincarnation is a deeply ingrained belief, shaping how everyone involved interpreted these events? Or, as some people suspected, could the whole thing have been an elaborate hoax for publicity?
But regardless of which explanation you lean towards, the story of Suresh Verma and Titu Singh had very, very real-world consequences, both for the Indian legal system and, of course, for the little boy at the center of it all. This is just unprecedented. The Indian courts actually took the case seriously, spurred on by intense media attention from places like the BBC. The evidence provided by a small child, these memories that seemed to belong to a dead man, was actually used in the trial. And based on that information, the men responsible for Suresh Verma's murder were convicted.
So what about Titu himself? Well, just as paranormal researchers had predicted, his memories of Suresh Verma's life started to fade away around the age of 7 or 8. He went on to lead a perfectly normal, quiet life, earned a master's degree, and became an assistant professor. The boy with 2 lives eventually settled comfortably back into just one.
You know, the case of Titu Singh really leaves us with so many more questions than answers. It pushes right up against the boundaries of our understanding of consciousness. It forces us to ask what we really are. I mean, if our memories can exist separately from our bodies, then what makes us, well, us? This case doesn't give us the answer, but it poses the question brilliantly. What really separates a memory from an identity? And where does a life truly begin?